Hello. Today we're going to continue with our if statements, adding another option, and that's going to be the if-else statement. So, an if-else statement is when you have two options. For example, if I am tired, I go to sleep, else I go for a run. So here the condition is I am tired. If it's true, I do one thing. The else statement is what I do if the condition is false. If I like the current song, I will make it louder. If it's not true that I like the current song, I will change the song. Two options based upon the truth or falsity of the condition. So the else part is what gets executed when the if condition is false. Sometimes you'll hear me in class say otherwise. If it helps to think of it that way, by all means do so. So for example, in terms of the syntax of Java, the if is followed by, in parentheses, the condition, which we check for true or false. If it's true, what's in the braces right here, that's what we do. Else, if the Boolean proves false, we do what's in the braces below it. So let's look at if-else.java. So we have the integer called num. If it's greater than 100, it's going to print the statement greater than 100. Else, if the else case applies, that means it's not greater than 100, so it must be less than or equal to. Okay, so we run it. Because the value of num is 990, we get the greater than option. If we change it to 99 and compile it that way, what do we get? Well, less than or equal to 100. The condition here, num greater than 100, is not true, it's false. That's when we execute the else part. So again, when this is true, we execute what follows it. When this is false, we execute what follows the else statement. As another example, if else 2. Just to show you this, the equals to is a possibility. Okay? We set num equal to 100. And if you don't remember, this is how we type in greater than or equal to in Java. We don't have a greater than or equal to key, so we use both parts separately. If we wanted less than or equal to, it would say less than and then the equal sign. And it happens that that statement is true, so it's going to print out the first statement. If we make the first statement false, it'll print out the else statement. Now I did want one reason for showing you this is to, if you'll notice, there's no braces here. And again, I think I talked about this last time. For an if statement, if there's no braces at all, the first and only the first line after the if statement is considered to be what's executed. Okay? Since there's no braces, when this is true, we execute that one line. Okay? If it's false, we execute the first and only the first line after the else if there's no braces. So be careful. I always recommend you use braces to scope off exactly what you mean. If you leave them out, it will execute the next line, but only the next line at the proper time. So again, with braces it would look like this. We've got a brace, one line and a brace, one line and a brace. Without braces, it will execute that one line, and as long as you've only got one line, it will execute correctly. And you can put, again, you can nest your if statements, put one inside another, even if there is else's associated with it. Just be very careful. And let me show you why. Okay. So we have the statement, if num is greater than 2. Well, we'll go inside. Okay. So if num is greater than 2, then we'll check to see if it's less than 10. Okay. So if this is true, we go to here. Okay. If that's true, then we print this. The else statement, the question is, which if is that associated with? Well, it's always associated with whatever's right above it. What's right above it this case is that brace. The matching brace is here. So it is the else alternative to that statement there. Okay. So if num is less than or equal to 2, this is what will be executed. This else is the alternative to what ends right above it with the brace. Let me run it just to show you. So let's see if we can follow through the steps here. Num is equal to 1. Okay. So this will not be true. So we'll never ever go inside this part. But we will go down to this brace. We see the else condition. That's what gets executed because the first part was false. Another example. Here's one. Right. This is the same example. We set it equal to 1. Right. This part's false. So this else takes over. Now, dangling else. Here's an example of what to watch out for. So you have to pay attention to your braces and be very careful with your ifs and elses. What we have here? Well, looking at it, this if is lined up directly with that else. Makes perfect sense. However, there's no braces. Right. So what the else does is look directly above it. What's directly above it? Is this if statement here. So even though it's indented, Java doesn't see that. What it does is see what's right above it, and what's right above it is this if, so these two are actually connected to each other. So what's going to happen? Well, num equals 11. So what's going to happen? Well, it's greater than 2, so it's going to go inside to this if statement. But this if statement is not true. It's greater than 10. So since this if statement is not true, this is the else statement for that if, so it's going to execute what's in here. So to be legible, to be more readable, I really should type it with the if and the else lined up to the one that it matches to. This else goes with this if, okay? So it really should be directly underneath it. So don't let the indentation fool you. Right? An else always refers to what's directly right above it. So even though the indentation may look very weird, okay, look what's above the else. That will tell you what it's referring to. So it prints less than 2. Okay, because this is true, but this is false, and the else takes over from there. So be careful, right? Don't be fooled by things that are indented wrong. Look out for the braces, and look out for what comes immediately before what. That tells you which if and which else is in play. So some common errors, right? Typos or just brain farts. When you have an else, you do not put a condition on an else. We already know it only happens when this is false. So you don't get to check something else. Right? If this is true, we do what's here. Right? If this is false, we do what's here. If you try to attach another truth condition to that else statement, you'll get an error statement. It won't compile. And last but not least, the dreaded semicolon before an open brace. Okay. If you put a semicolon in front of an opening brace, right, it might compile, but it won't work. So if you have something scoped off with braces, you should not have a semicolon in front of it. Okay. That's the end of part 1. The next thing we're going to do is talk about comparing less than, greater than, equal to strings. We have a special command for that called equals. Okay. We'll start that again with the next video.